The Suda shelter takes in injured animals, old animals, puppies, any animals that can't live on their own on the street. So here at the shelter you'll find animals that have been burned by acid, animals that have been neglected, animals that have been hit by cars, puppies that have been left in baskets or boxes by the garbage. All the animals that are here needed some kind of help.
This is Alaska, one of Elizabeth's latest rescues. Around her area in Chania, in Crete, Greece, there are about 3,000 stray animals. As all rescuers in Greece, she is faced with the everyday heartache of seeing more animals in need on the streets than she can save. But in Greece, there is another problem. As if all the pain and the suffering is not enough, the millions of strays, chained and abused dogs, volunteers like her are not only not being acknowledged, they are accused of smuggling, they are prosecuted, and they have their modest shelters closed down.
We're being accused of selling dogs for vivisection, for selling dogs to brothels, for selling dogs to make canned meat. We have a big problem here in Greece with rehoming, as far as rehoming legally. The national government does not, the Ministry of Agriculture to be more precise, does not want to assist the rescuers in rehoming legally. There are certain papers that are issued for animals making transit throughout Europe. These papers are not being issued here in Greece, although they are being issued throughout Europe, which allows an animal to freely be transported from one country to another.
For decades, a conspiracy theory of Greek origin claims that the animals adopted abroad are sold to brothels, and rescuers like Elizabeth are seen as smugglers by the government, which blocks adoptions. The issue has become so severe that last month more than 180 animal charities wrote an open letter to the Greek government explaining how adoptions of strays is not trafficking. And Elizabeth herself was forced to post publicly explaining how she is not a trafficker.
We have about 80 plus dogs here in the shelter. We feed about another maybe 20 on the street. We have cats and fosters, birds, owls, everything. Oh, and a sheep. Got started in 2016 when the previous owner of the shelter decided that she wanted to step back, and I inherited the shelter.
Elizabeth basically inherited the shelter from the previous rescuer, who quit, leaving more than 200 animals behind. Her perseverance and her hard work helped narrow down this number, and although she keeps rescuing, she also rehomes, mainly abroad, which has made her a huge target for the nationalistic minority that tries to block adoptions, that lobbies the government and closes down shelters like hers.
When somebody wants a dog from us, first they'll fill out a questionnaire, then they'll have a phone interview, and after the phone interview they'll have a house check, no matter where they are in Europe. People ask, why are your dogs leaving to other countries in Europe? Doesn't Germany have any strays? Doesn't Finland have any strays? Doesn't Denmark have any strays? And the answer to that is no, they don't. Why can't I adopt animals here in Greece? Because all the dog lovers here in Greece are actually fully stocked in their houses. All you have to do is open up your door and pick a dog up off the street. So us animal lovers here, like me, who live in Greece, have 2, 3, 5 dogs in their homes.
Everyone who rescues in Greece knows very well that the homes here are few, while the strays are too many. And in this country of millions of strays, the government doesn't only not help, doesn't only just leave the rescuers be, but it keeps putting obstacles to the people who help voluntarily and basically tries to make adoptions illegal.
The problem here in Greece is not the people. I've said it before. It's not the people. People say, oh, they're uneducated, they're barbaric. It's not the people. The problem is the government. If the government doesn't start respecting this major problem, the people can't respect it, especially the people who aren't connected to the animals. So that's why we have this problem. It has to start from the head. Like in Greece, they say the fish stinks from the head. It has to start from the government.
That's right, the fish stinks from the head. And the head, aka the Greek government, has never tried to talk to volunteers like Elizabeth, who know the problem and also know the solution better than anyone. Instead, they are trying to facilitate the opening of more public shelters, where the dogs are left in the care of government employees without veterinary care and end up living in their feces and feeding off each other.
As we've seen throughout Greece, municipal shelters don't work. You can't put public servants to work in a space with dog shit and dog barking and the elements of the sun and the rain. If you don't love dogs, the dogs will not be taken care of.
Oh, they become concentration camps.
Exactly.
The dogs eat each other.
Exactly, and they're throwing food over the fence. They don't even bother to step inside. The Greek government needs to understand that they have a treasure of people here who really know the work. They need to bring them in. They need to sit down and speak with them. And they don't have to have them running things, but they need to get an idea of how it happens.
Elizabeth not only realizes what an asset the volunteers like her could be for the government, but she also understands that the communication between the animal welfare organizations and the local communities is the key to eventually solve the huge problem of stray, abandoned and abused dogs in Greece.
I also want to talk to the rescuers and say that, you know, it's time to open up your doors to the locals. I do that here. It's time to go out into your community. When you argue with someone about the treatment of their dog, they're just going to shut the door on you. You need to know how to approach them. You need to know not to insult them, because the truth of the matter is, the more people that I approach and I get to speak with them, they don't even realize that they're mistreating their animal. They don't even realize that this animal has the feeling of loneliness or the feeling of sadness or the feeling, because all those years previous they were working tools. It's good for the rescuers to begin to welcome the community. When I have a neighbor right next door, he shot a dog and I had to pick her up from the street. He only used one bullet and he wouldn't use a second because he didn't want to waste the second bullet. Her name was Lida. He hit her point blank with a shotgun, blew her eye out, her ear out, and filled the rest of her body with pellets. I got a phone call 8 o'clock at night. They told me there's a shot dog. I went and I found it. When she saw me, she screamed like a pig, and I never will forget that sound in my head of her screaming, covered in blood. I see that neighbor every day. She lived 4 years in Finland. She died eventually, but she had a nice ending. I see that neighbor every day. I speak to that neighbor, I tell him good morning. When he has a problem with dogs, he calls me. He told me he shot her because he didn't want to be one of those people who abandons their dog on the street. Now he realizes that it's not the way to go. But I'm a shelter here and they're trying to shut me down. So what happens when they shut me down and this guy doesn't find a place? Can't call the municipality. He's going to end up shooting the dog again. And then is he wrong when he shoots it?
Having the government shut down her shelter recently, being refused the legal papers for her dogs to be rehomed, and being accused of making money from selling dogs by the mayor himself of the area, Elizabeth recently asked publicly for help from all networks around the world. As she said, what happens in Greece needs to be investigated, and she couldn't be more right. Visiting her shelter and talking to her that day made me realize how wrong we do things here in all levels, and how much of a treasure volunteers like her really are. Volunteers that are being treated like criminals, while they should be praised, honored and respected. One of the last things I asked her was if she likes what she does.
There are days that I hate what I do because it makes me hate my fellow human. There are days that I more than love what I do, that I feel like the richest person on earth when we finally see a dog that was so broken open up to us and, you know, show us that love that it's been wanting to give, but it hasn't been able to give. So, yeah, do I love what I do? In general, yes, I do. In general, yes, I do. Because I have the key to the shelter. And when I open up that door and I come inside, this place is therapy. It's paradise. I leave everything else outside.
Hello, I am Valia. If you like the videos, please subscribe, and if you can, join me on Patreon and help create more compassionate people. Para la versión del canal en castellano, busquen el enlace abajo.